also for the person who's bullying, you put it in a comment and you hit send and you can't take it back.
Yeah.
So, as we grow as human beings, no matter your age, you learn. And it's out there and you can't take it back. And I think, so it's not only harmful to the person that you've just insulted, but when you hopefully learn and grow and realize you did something wrong, it's hurtful to them too.
Hi friends, this is Read and Write with Natasha podcast. My name is Natasha Tynes and I'm an author and a journalist. In this channel, I talk about the writing life, review books, and interview authors. Hope you enjoy the journey. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. I am very happy today to have with me author Gabi Justice. Gabi is the author of Dog Girl, her young adult contemporary romance debut. She is mom to 3 dogs and 1 cat. She lives in Florida with her husband and children, and Florida provides the setting for all her coming-of-age stories that highlight bullying, misjudgment, acceptance, and teen anxiety. Gabi, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to talk about your book, Dog Girl. It's a very cool book, and as a mom of a dog and of a girl, a preteen girl, it's I particularly enjoyed it, and I even discussed it with my with my daughter. We were talking about the themes in the book, and now she's excited to read it.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, so for those who are listening and watching, Gabby, can you tell us a bit about the book Dog Girl?
Yes, well, the main character is a 17-year-old girl who lives and works at a dog rescue center. She has been suffering from anxiety for many, many years due to a tragedy in her family. And she's progressed. She's making great progress. She's in a good place in her life. And then, at where the book starts, she does a heroic dog rescue and nearly dies. But she saves the dog, and the video goes viral. She didn't know somebody was videotaping it, but somebody was, and then it goes viral. So she's shoved into the spotlight, which is great to raise money for the rescue, but not so good for her anxiety. And then along comes a cute boy who is volunteering at the center. And so that's another thing that ups her anxiety level. So pretty much she's struggling to do her passion, which is rescue dogs. And as you've read the story, there's a little sneak look into the story. There's a wolf she's trying to rescue, which is out of the country. So that is one of her goals. But her other goal is not to break down in front of thousands of people on national television, or not to break down in front of her new friend / soon love interest. So she's just really struggling to hold it all together.
Yeah, the book has lots of concepts, very timely concepts. Bullying, anxiety, social media, and I want to talk about the effect of the pandemic and on teenage girls from your experience, especially when it comes to bullying and social media. How do you think that increased because of the pandemic? Where do we stand? Is bullying in general increasing? I mean, my daughter, every day when she comes back from school, there's always a drama. This said this said that. And I was talking with another author who wrote a book for preteen about friendships for preteen girls. And these are one of the things that we discussed is, people are becoming less nice.
Yeah, I listened to that podcast.
I did. Okay, so I just want to hear your thoughts on bullying, especially among teenagers, and is social media playing a big role in that?
Yes. Well, during the pandemic, since I've written the book, my daughter's now gone through college and working. So, but I did have teen son during the pandemic, and it was a struggle. Um, and as far as social media, in some ways, you know what? I think social media actually helped because they were stuck at home. I mean, thankfully they could go online and see their friends and communicate and play video games or do whatever instead of being able to go to somebody's house because we were all trapped in our homes, scared. Um, so in that sense, it probably was a good thing.
Mm,
But overall, yeah, it can be extremely toxic. I struggle with it because I see it as a positive and a negative.
yeah,
It's really because people will say things they won't say to your face, but
yeah,
it's easy to write it, jot it on a computer or over a social feed. And and also for the person who's bullying, you put it in a comment and you hit send and you can't take it back.
yeah,
So, as we grow as human beings, no matter your age, you learn. And
yeah,
it's out there and you can't take it back. And I think so it's not only harmful to the person that you've just insulted, but when you hopefully learn and grow and realize you did something wrong, it's hurtful to them too. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And what why did you decide to write on the topic of bullying? Was it because of a personal experience, or what led you to make the focus of your book bullying, or at least part of it on bullying?
Well, there's probably two reasons. The story kind of grew organically. I've become, I'm sure plotter versus pantser. So
Mhm.
I was definitely a pantser. I'm becoming more and more of a plotter because as you get further along in your story, you realize, I need more than just, winging it here. So, so yeah, so um, as the story organically progressed, you have to put conflict in there.
Mm,
So where do you find the conflict? So bullying was definitely
mm,
key element, but also because it was evident in my children's
mm.
relationships, boys and girls. It was relevant. Um, I mean, I'll have to admit, we had some issues. With my daughter had some issues, being on the receiving end and being the saying a few things she shouldn't have said
Mhm.
on social media. So yeah, I just having my daughter and all her friends constantly. They play tennis. They're competitive tennis players, and
Okay.
so and I was lucky enough to be driving them all around so I could hear what they were saying. Uh, we'd be in hotels for tennis and I just sit there and you can just listening and you hear and oh this girl and that girl and blah 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 and,
Yeah.
so
I
you have to yeah and so I guess it was just all around and and I was reading some of the books I was reading, so I guess it was a lot of things. It was in the relationships that I was watching through my children. It was adding the extra conflict up the novel, make it more interesting. So,
Hmm. So I want to talk about your publishing journey. So this is your debut novel. Why did you decide to go through the journey, which is kind of sometimes really grueling journey, of one writing a book and two going through the journey of finding a publisher or an agent? And I want to hear all about your story of from writing to publishing. Did you find an agent? Did you go with a small press? Did you self-publish? All of that journey. So just grab a cup of coffee and and let's hear you out.
some water here.
I
Oh,
gotta drink some water. Yeah.
um, so Gabby is a pen name,
Hmm.
and I, it is a debut young adult contemporary for me.
Okay.
I wasn't a contemporary writer. I did write under my real name in some paranormal fiction
Mm.
area. So totally different area.
Okay.
So through that journey, I won't talk about that just because they're currently off the market right now. So it gets
Okay.
very confusing when I start going back and forth. But through that self-publishing journey, I was put on a panel. So I did self-publish through that. And I was put on a panel at my local Tampa Writers Alliance.
Okay.
I was in a critique group and a writing group, and so they thought I had all this knowledge of self-publishing, which I didn't. But I went up there, I put a smile on my face, and I tried my best. And on the panel was also an agent, a literary agent
Okay.
named Sharon Bel Castro. And so I met her and we just chit chatted. And, she didn't want anything that I'd already published. So we just chit chatted. And then I kept seeing her in different places where I was going to promote these books. And we became friends. We just, every time I ran into her, we'd talk and share. And so finally, this contemporary novel just crept its way into my brain and it
Okay.
wouldn't go away.
Okay.
So I wrote it and I pitched it. I said, hey, since I had a relationship with her already, I felt comfortable. Like, well, I know you don't want these already published books, but maybe, would you take a look at this? And she did. And then she kept sending it back and revise this, revise this, revise this, change this. So we got in about 4 revisions. And still, I didn't know. Are we just friends or are we like agent writer? What's
Yeah.
going on here?
Yeah.
Finally, I just flat
It's
out asked,
complicated.
yeah,
Yeah.
So I just asked her, I'm like, are you my agent? So she said, yes, yes. So
That's fascinating. Okay. Yeah.
you never know, because I had for the contemporary, I think I did query some other agents before too and got rejected. But I always got good feedback.
Okay.
I kind of knew the story had legs because I wasn't just getting flat rejection letters. I was getting really like this, and I could tell they read it. So that was
Okay.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but for some reason they didn't want it. So I ended up, which was fine because I was happy. It worked out the way it did, but
Oh, wow. So, I guess you got lucky in a sense because some authors like spend years trying to find agents. So the book was after you found your agent and the agent managed to sell it to
yeah,
a
it,
publisher. And is who's the publisher? If you can tell us a bit about the publisher who picked up the book.
yeah, Swoon Romance.
Okay.
It took a year. It took a year, which apparently I guess isn't too long.
Yeah.
It felt long, but I now have another book on submission, and it's been
Oh.
over a year. So I'm like, oh, I guess a year wasn't so bad.
With the same agent.
Yes, and young adult contemporary as well.
Okay.
But it's out there in the world of submission. But um, and so the publisher what is it? I guess she's a small publisher. I don't know if you'd consider it an independent publisher or a small
Okay.
publisher. I'm not exactly sure.
I think they're
But
kind of interchangeable somehow.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think probably the same thing. But she um, was on, she was collecting a lot of books on the rise, growing her publishing agency or public, I don't know what you call it.
Publishing house. Publishing house.
Publishing house. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And
Mm.
I don't know, she's not taking new stuff, or I would have submitted my new stuff to her. But so I don't know. I don't know where she's going to go from here. Um, hopefully she's doing well and everything's great. I mean,
Mm. So you're gonna go with a new publisher now. So you're looking for the new publisher.
yeah, for my next story, that's actually about competitive tennis girls.
Ah, wow. So I guess your topics are influenced by your real life, like you have three dogs. You just told me before going here live that you have three dogs that are way over 80 pounds. And then
Yeah, like
you have,
horses.
I know. And then you have, a girl, so, and you raise teenagers. So is it accurate to say that most of your novels are influenced by your children, whether they were furry children or not furry children?
Yes, yes, I'm definitely pulling from real life, and the whole write what you know
Yeah.
theory definitely has come into these two contemporary books that I've written. Um, yeah, the whole rescue though
Yeah.
was out of my realm, so I had to do a lot of research on that. And I met a local rescue. It's called Merciful Projects here in Tampa Bay area, and her name is Heidi. And it was like I felt like I was meeting my main character Kendall
Ah.
in the flesh,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
grown up.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a sad world, really. I don't know how she lives it day in and day out, trying to rescue these beaten up, really horribly treated animals. So, but I tried to put that, I tried to evoke that in the book.
Yeah.
I can write animals because I'm around animals, like, all their little quirks and their cute little
Yeah.
other
Yeah, like the
personalities.
kisses and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It was very like sweet.
Mhm.
So you said something earlier and I was like, wow, she just buried the lead. You used the pen name. So I wanna look, the journalist in me. I was like, huh, I wanna I wanna hear all about this. Why and just curious.
Yes,
And how is that going?
I can't help but be honest.
Well, it's an open forum.
It's it's really, to be honest, it's really hard. We did that. It was I was going to write under this pen name when I self-published originally, but it's funny. I would go to conferences and people would say Gabby, and I wouldn't turn around because I'm like, who's Gabby?
Yeah,
Now it's like a second. Now I answer to it
yeah.
with ease, but
Okay.
this was like 10, 12 years ago. So then I wrote under my real name. Then when we I did this book, and like I said, being that it is a different genre and traditionally published, my publisher wanted the pen name, and she loved Gabi Justice. She's like, oh, it's such a great YA name.
Yeah.
And it has roots in my maiden name. My maiden name was Justice.
Ah, okay.
So yeah. And so it's interesting. It's hard as far as I have to have two social media pages.
Mm.
Um, it and then just answering to a fake name.
So,
It's
so the reason
complicated.
was, so the reason was, I mean, is there a reason you did not want to expose your real identity, or like do people know who the person is behind Gabby Justice, or you want to keep it secret like Elena Ferrante? Uh, for
No, I don't really want to keep it secret. I don't, because I want to share. I'm sure there's
okay,
other authors out there going
okay,
through the same thing. And to be honest, I don't think readers care. Readers just want to read a good book.
yeah,
In the industry, though, there's some nuances as far as um, genre crossing, you know,
like what? Sorry,
genre
genre crossing.
crossing.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay,
they want a brand. If your Gabby Justice brand is young adult contemporary,
okay,
I think it's all about branding.
I
So
see.
yeah,
And the paranormal stuff you published under your own name or under Gabby Justice?
under my own name.
Ah, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, so I try to stick to my name. My real name is Janelle, and to keep that all fantasy related. and I'm a young
Ah.
adult contemporary under Gabi. Yeah.
So did you stop publishing fantasy and paranormal and you want to focus on young adult, or is or maybe you'll come back to it?
I I'm doing both. I
Ah,
just I love young adult. I love fantasy. I love fantasy, and paranormal and all that stuff. I devour all those books. At the time I wrote Dog Girl and the tennis book, I- it was a time in my life when my two oldest were teenagers.
okay.
And so I guess I was so engulfed in that world and reading young adult contemporary books that it was just a time. It was that time and place to write those books.
Because you were reading along with your kids? Or
Yes.
okay, okay.
Or just becoming fascinated with that area. Those kind of,
Okay.
it was the right place, the right time. But I'm not sure I have any more young adult contemporary books in me. But I mean, oh no, actually I do. I have one more idea. I was just thinking
Okay.
that I got from a country song, which was
Okay.
funny. Yeah. I love
Okay.
the country song, half of my hometown, but for some reason and I don't know if you've read the Colleen Hoover book, Regretting You.
I
Mm,
read like two or three books of I read Verity and
yes,
It
Verity's
Ends
so
with
good.
Us. It Ends with Us.
I haven't read that one,
Uh,
but Verity was so good.
yeah, I love her work. Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Well, Regretting You is from two different points of view, the mom and the daughters. So
ah,
I thought that was really interesting because you could market to both adult and young adult.
ah,
Really, I mean,
interesting. Okay.
So yeah. So I think
That's her most recent book, right?
I don't think so. She has so many. I
Ah,
don't think
okay.
that's the most. I think Verity came out after that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
But I could
definitely.
be wrong.
I love her work.
Hmm.
And so so now you're writing um in like under both names, right? So now you're writing under your own name and under Gabi Justice at the same time.
Yes, I'm currently just writing. Like in the only book out is Dog Girl, so that's my only book I'm promoting. Behind the scenes, I'm writing, and sharing stuff with Sharon and being like, "Hey, you like this? What do you think? What should we do?" Blah blah blah. So keeping my fingers crossed. In the future, I'll have more than one book out there in the real world. And maybe under two different names. I don't know.
So how did you get into writing in the first place? Why?
Well, I think I've always been creative. When I was younger, it was acting all throughout elementary, middle, high school, even college. I was acting and dance and in dance. My singing voice lacked. I was never a triple threat on the theater scene because singing was not my thing.
Yeah.
But then I got married.
Okay.
Got married fairly young, fell in love young and married, and we started a business. So my creative, and I helped write copy for him for our business
Okay.
and edit and do all that stuff. But then we had children, and I was a stay-home mom. So, because it drove me crazy to work for him, for one thing. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just deal with the kids. You can deal with the business. But and then they got older, and I started to realize I needed something. I needed my creative energy
Mm.
to go somewhere. So while they would go off to tennis, I would sit in my car with my laptop and
Mm.
create stories, and just created a novel and took it to a conference in Georgia, and learned that I had done so much wrong. And I needed to find a critique group, and I needed to find a writing group. And finally, I think after 10 years, I feel like, oh, I'm in this industry. I know people now. It's kind
Yeah.
of, it takes a while. It's not a, it's not a, it takes time, energy, and effort. Going back to, we discussed when I told you how I found Sharon and I became friends, and and the word luck was mentioned. I mentioned it, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, it was lucky, but at the same time, it's putting yourself out there. If I hadn't self-published that book, if I hadn't been on that panel, if I hadn't taken that scary step and chance, then I wouldn't have met her. So,
Yeah,
um,
true. So now you're a full-time author. Like can you tell me a bit about your writing habits? What kind of a writer are you? Do you write every day? Do you have specific writing hours? Do you wait until the inspiration strikes? What kind of writer are you? I'm just curious.
I do try every day, and
Okay.
sometimes it's like 15 minutes. I prefer to, I do usually take a week or 2 weeks,
Okay.
like a retreat.
Oh.
Sometimes it corresponds nicely with, like, my youngest son likes acting, and he had gone off to a summer camp,
Mm.
and it was out of state, and I
Okay.
didn't feel comfortable. He was staying there, but I
Okay.
didn't feel comfortable. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity and be a writer's retreat. While he's at this acting camp, I'm just going to stay at a local hotel, so I can be close in case something happens and he needs me, but he can have his journey, his independence, and I can use the time to write. So I try to do things like that. Uh,
Mm. I like this. It's like a self-imposed retreat.
right. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I like that. Okay.
But definitely just pushing through. I think definitely getting up early. For me, it's early. I know some people are night
Okay.
owls. I like the early. I like to try to get up at like 5 o'clock
Oh wow.
in the morning, and try to get a lot of things done before 9, because the rest of the world around me wakes up around 9. So, and then the phone calls come in and the emails and the, yeah.
I hear you. And so I want to talk a bit about self-publishing versus traditionally being published and having an agent. So in your case, you've done both. And I've, on this podcast, I talked to a number of authors, some self-published, others with small press, others had an agent, others still looking. So, and one curious discussion I had with someone is that they started as and they're in the fantasy genre, that they started as traditionally published and then they left that and they went to self-publishing, and they said they're basically making a killing. I mean, if you want to think about the financial rewards, I mean, if that's one of the
Right.
goals, some people, that's not one of the goals, but one of the goals is that they felt that self-publishing was more financially rewarding, and they wanted that to be their career. They wanted to make a living out of writing, so for them self-publishing was the route. How do you feel about that?
I'd honestly, from the beginning, thought I'd like to be a hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'd like to see.
Can you explain that to our audience?
Well, a hybrid is you're both. You
Okay.
have some books traditionally published and some books self-published. Um,
And they're two different names.
yeah, well, I guess not necessarily, but probably yes.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, like, I think Colleen Hoover is a. Speaking of her
Hybrid.
again, I
Yeah.
think she's a hybrid. And I think a lot of those of hybrid, successful hybrid authors probably start off self-published, and then those books become so popular,
Yeah.
that that a, that a publishing house wants to get in on it because they're doing so well. But I'm I don't know which. I can see where you would make more, where you could make more money self-publishing, because you get higher royalties. I mean, or you get all the money. No, but you're not sharing a cut with an agent or a publisher, and which I understand. I get that. It and to be honest, it's come so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier than it used to be.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm slowly learning. now how to navigate through the Amazon Author Central page, and learning all the algorithms and the what do you, well, I don't know the algorithms, but like the what do you,
The
keywords,
mechanism or the
keywords
mechanic.
and
Yeah.
what? Yeah. Um, so I see that because even traditionally published authors are have to do so much marketing
Hmm.
and so much of their own advertising. Um, that's one of the arguments too. I don't know if you know, Amazon just allowed traditional authors to advertise. Before, only the self-published authors could advertise. Now, traditionally published authors can advertise. But there's a dual argument on that because on the one hand, that's great. You can, because before your hands were tied as traditionally published, you couldn't advertise on Amazon.
Why not? It had to do go through your publisher or
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Right. Um, but the argument is, oh, now that's just one more thing traditionally published authors have to spend money on. And the publishing house can say, well, you can do that if you want to.
Yeah.
So it's another expense when supposedly if you're traditionally published, these expenses are covered. That's what everybody thinks. But and maybe in the top five they are. I mean, I'm not that there yet, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the smaller houses, you're still spending a lot of money. So I can
Yeah.
see the self-publishing is is a what would you call it? Is a you could be drawn to that because if you're already spending money on marketing and different things, you might as well not have to share the cut of your royalties.
Yeah. Do you think there's a still stigma against being self-published? Like, would an agent probably won't pick you if you're already self-published, and they'd rather go with someone who's, has a clean slate?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I definitely think there was when I started 10 years ago. 10, 12 years ago now. I was I didn't really know much about self-publishing, so I was really trying to get traditionally published and I thought honestly to be honest in my head at that time I was thinking I would fail if I didn't get a traditionally published
Okay.
contract. But that didn't happen. So I was like, you know what? Why not? I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens. Because a friend in my writers group said it was just kind of she's a self-published author and she's like, just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Blah 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 blah. Just try. And so I did, and it worked out great. I still have a lot going on in that side that it's complicated, but ups and downs and but where am I going with this? Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
That's right. But I mean, we were just talking about the stigma.
Right.
Did you
I
feel
think
any stigma when you were trying to find a publisher or an agent after you self-published?
I think on any honestly, if I think depend on the day you asked me because I can go I can be super confident one day and be like, it doesn't matter if you're self-published or traditionally published. If you have a great concept, a great book, it doesn't matter. And then there'll be a day that's everything's going wrong, and I'll be like bummed out and think if only the traditional published is better because you have the backing of a publishing
Mhm.
house, and it it depends. As far as stigma, yes and no. I think it is still lingers in the back of some people's mind, but at the same time, I think it's much more accepted these days. And if you have a good product, you have a good product. Period.
Mm.
You know,
Okay.
I think when I go to a conference, even with agents and editors there, they're only looking at the work. They're not looking at, they're just looking at the words on the paper. Are is it a good story? Is it a good concept? Can I sell this?
Mm.
Um, and it really, and you could, the person who wrote it could be self-published or traditionally published. I don't think it matters. If they like it, they like it.
Mm. That's true. Um, so what I want to talk about the feedback that you got on your book. Uh, was there any negative feedback that you got? And as authors, we always get positive and negative, and getting negative feedback is kind of part of the gig, and we just have to develop thick skin, I guess.
Yeah.
And if there was any negative feedback, how did you deal with it? And what's your advice for authors who get negative feedback, especially those like grueling Goodreads reviews?
Oh, some people are just horrible. Thankfully, I have not gotten one of those. Hopefully, that doesn't. My lowest is a 3 star
Yeah,
on this
okay.
book, as far as I know, the last time I looked. So that's, and then it's so hard not to check. Sometimes I'll get a 3 star review and I'll stalk the person and I never comment or say anything.
Yeah.
Um, but I'll be like, sometimes you'll notice that, oh, this person's a really tough reviewer. 3 stars is really
Mm,
good. She doesn't
yeah.
give out,
Yeah.
that's, and people have told me 3 stars is good. 5 stars is like exceptional. So, but you love to get those 5 stars. But um, as far as the revisions, this book went through like 8 revisions with
Oh.
I got negative feedback from critique groups and from my agent. So that at first, it's like a bee sting. You feel it at first,
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
and then it goes away, and you're like, yeah, they're right. I need to fix this. You hunker down. You have to fix it. Then when it's done and it's out in the world, there's nothing you can do about it. Um, I just take it. I have a thick skin. If I had started writing younger, straight out of in high school or straight out of college or whatever, I mean, I was writing, but it's all in a drawer. It never saw the light of day. But um, I didn't. It would have hurt my feelings a lot more so than now. I guess that comes with age and wisdom, age and wisdom, right?
You look very young, so
Um, and the critique group too.
yeah.
I was in that critique group for 3 years and 25 people in that group.
Oh wow.
You got everything. I mean, you could get some really horrible stuff, and then you could get some praise. So the good with the bad. The only thing I did have a review that sort of bothered me because she didn't think because of the aspects of the teen anxiety. She
Mm.
thought that I had maybe sugarcoated it. It had a happy ending or whatever.
Okay.
But it was like, it's just a slice of life, of Kendall's life. We don't know what's going to happen to her when the story ends. Hopefully, the story ends on a high note, and hopefully her life from then on it continues on that upward progression. But that's the reader's imagination. Where does Kendall go at the end
Yeah.
of the book?
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of people, a lot of my reviews, that people say they could really relate to her struggles, and they thought I portrayed it accurately. What I found in researching and going and listening to panels and real people discuss their anxiety issues, everybody's journey is different. So, yeah, Kendall's journey, she might, she has this imaginary uh, demon ego in her head all the time.
Mm.
One person that suffers from teenage anxiety might not have that and be like, oh, that's not real. But somebody else be like, yeah, I understand. I kind of get that. I understand why she's has that voice in her head all the time. Or the whole, when she gets flush and she faints, that anxiety that builds up, and and it has to escape, or the survival instinct in your body, and she just
Mm.
faints. Um, Maybe that happens for some people, maybe it doesn't happen for other people. Everybody's mental health journey is different. So I just tried to include as many things that happened to a person in that situation that I had witnessed through my teenage friends, that I'd felt myself, that I'd researched, and read about. And it it hit the nerve of some people in a good way. And I was happy. I'm like, that's all I want. You just want to put somebody on paper that a reader can relate to and have a positive feeling.
Mm.
Like, just you want to see yourself, or a little bit of yourself, sometimes in a character. And especially young girls, even young boys, young people in general, that are growing up and coming of age, and finding themselves. Um, but that's such a magical age. I don't know. That's nothing that drew me to the contemporary young adult, is that it's a magical age when you are becoming an adult.
Yeah.
And you're a person becoming an adult. There's so many changes, so many things you learn about yourself, about the world, about the people you know. Um,
So, I want to ask about the language in the book. So, I do that in my novel. I noticed you dropped the F bomb
ah,
the time. Did how did the readers or the parents feel about that? And then do you think that's an accurate representation of the current situation, especially when it comes to language? Like that social media influencer, the YouTube star, like F this,
yes.
F that. So I'm just curious about dropping the F bomb in YA. And I got criticized for having that in my novel. Somebody's like, I enjoyed your novel, but there was no need to use all this, curse words, and that was one comment that I got. So I'm just curious, especially when you're talking about teens.
Yes, I've definitely gotten heard there are two views of that. Um, I Well, honestly, I mean, these kids were cursing left and right. I mean, worse than I wrote in my book. I was like, and I'd constantly tell my kids, don't say that. Stop saying that. Stop saying that. They didn't stop. I mean, being competitive tennis players, let me tell you, they would get uh, really upset because the game wasn't going their way. They bang their rackets and words would fly out of their mouth. And I'm like, oh, please don't say that. I'm so embarrassed. I'm not their mother. But yeah, so I did that for realism. But I did. Some people like it, some people don't like it. I spoke in front of a group of librarians, high school librarians, and I told them, I'm like, it's real. It's
Mm.
in in what in the in all the teenagers I've been around, it's in their language. And when I was growing up, it was in my teenagers' languages too. I mean, that's years and years ago.
Yeah.
All my friends were potty mouth. So um so that's why I wanted to keep it real. So but a lot of the people, librarians and that I spoke with that deal with teenagers, like, oh yeah, yeah, we know, you're right. It is, it's okay. But there are some parents that just, and I'm sure there's plenty of kids out there who don't curse, and maybe, or their parents really frown upon it. Um, but definitely in the social media too, and in the songs, all the songs my children were listening to. I
Mm.
mean, it was either the word was in there constantly, or it was bleep 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 bleep, because they had the clean version, so half the words were bleeped out. So yeah, I did try to. I worked it in there too, where it is that YouTuber.
Yeah. Yeah.
She is because she wants the attention, or she
Yeah.
wants the
She
what do you
wants to
call
be cool. Yeah.
it? Yeah, or
Yeah.
the wow factor, right? The shock factor. That's the
Yeah.
word I'm looking for. She wants the shock factor to get views, but at the same time, we've got the one parent. Um, uh, I can't remember Kat's spells name. Oh my gosh, it's totally gone from me.
That's okay.
Anyway, her her partner
Yeah.
uh, is always saying, "Stop saying that," to both Kat, the mom, and Kendall, the daughter.
Yeah.
She's always putting them in their place and trying to say, "Hey, don't use those words. Don't use that language." So I tried to show where you should try to speak without those words, but yet those words exist in real life, and or people get mad. In Kendall's case, and in her mom Kat's case, they say them when they get frustrated and mad. They
And
don't normally say them.
do you think some librarians, especially at school, would not accept a book because of that, or you don't think so?
It depends on the school. I probably, I'm sure either. There are some that accept it, but would have to put a disclosure, or try, or would know, well, I know this child's parents don't want her or him or they to read this book. So um, I'm not gonna show, or I think it's all relative. I think,
Okay.
but it's funny. There's I think it was like a clean romance society that I came in contact with through a fellow writer, and she does write clean young
Okay.
adults. And so they saw that I was friends with her and that I had blurbed her book, and so they contacted me. And her name is Dallas Woodburn, and she writes some good books. I, which one did I blurb for? Oh, Carissa.
Okay.
Her book is Carissa. I hate when I can't remember things like this.
Anyways.
Carissa, thanks for ruining my life. That's it. It's a clean romance, and I blurped it for her. And this clean romance society contacted me, but I had to tell him, like, thank you so much. I think your society is wonderful and your books are wonderful, but my book has this many F bombs in it. So they were like, nope, sorry, pass.
Well, yeah, and sometimes they can come after you on social media, so it can be like it's a scandal. So I know, but it's an interesting discussion. I mean, but yeah, it's
And
yeah. Go ahead.
well, my other thought on that too was I have an agent and a publisher, so I'm like, well, it went through them, you know, or I
Yeah, I
I
mean
was
it's all relative, and it's I think it depends on people tastes. So we cannot make everyone happy. That's I think for me, if I wanna try to make everyone happy, I should not be in this business. That's just the bottom line. I mean, you write what you feel is accurate representation of what you know, and then you
you
hope for the
know,
best. Yeah.
and that's the beauty of this country, is that you can go, or you should be able to go to a bookstore, to a library, and pick out whatever book suits you.
Yeah.
Not what suits your friend, but
Yeah.
what suits you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And now I see lots of diverse choices, which is nice. Like before, it was not that diverse. So it's nice to see the diversity. So I
It
know
is.
we're coming to the hour, and I want to ask you to see if they have any tips for aspiring authors. I always like to end with tips. I like this podcast to be end always on a positive note, especially for those who really want to embark on this journey. So, what would you tell them? Like, let's say two or
I,
three tips.
I would say my biggest thing is start now.
Mm,
Even if you think, oh, I don't have any time, or I'm going to start after my kids grow up, or I'm going to start after I graduate high school or college, whatever. Just start now.
mm,
It's a marathon. It is a
yeah,
marathon. So, and put and find the joy in it. Just there's going to be ups and downs. It was so funny. I had a bad day Wednesday. If I thought to myself, if I had this podcast on Wednesday, it would be depressing. But then yesterday I had a really good day, so I'm like,
that's good.
yay!
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, start now and just keep persistence. That I just went to SCBWI, Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators conference last weekend, and I got it pumps you up when you go to these conferences, and that was the for all the keynote speakers and their all their journeys to the success, and they were also very successful. Was was it was a marathon, and be persistent.
Mm,
Just keep going.
yeah, yeah. That's yeah. And when is your next book coming out? Or are you still shopping it?
It's still shopping.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully soon.
Yes.
Well, Gabby, this has been wonderful, and I'm glad we got to talk. I enjoyed your book. I hope, I'm sure the readers and the listeners will enjoy it. It's Dogger by Gabi Justice. It's available on Amazon. Is it available at bookstores as well,
Yeah,
correct?
it's available everywhere. If it's not on the shelf of a bookstore, they can order it.
Okay, great. So enjoy the rest of the day. Happy weekend, and until we meet again. And thank you everyone for watching another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. Until we meet again, keep reading and keep writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.